My name is Thomas O'Regan, and me and my wife, have built an 11 property portfolio over the last 3.5 years. And today, what I wanted to talk about was starting out, building a property portfolio, especially for those people on lower, medium, normal incomes. So when I started building my property portfolio, when me and my wife started building our property portfolio, we started on a very low income. And now, to be completely transparent, me and my wife buy properties separately, and that's for strategic reasons. It's not anything like we don't love each other or we don't trust each other or anything like that. It's just for strategic reasons, and that being the end game for me was always to start my own business. And I knew that if I started my own business and me and my wife were buying every single property together, writing our names down on the contract of sale to purchase a property together, that the minute that I started my own business, our property portfolio growth would stop. So just when me and my just start to full transparency, when me and my wife started investing in properties, we said, okay, let's buy all the properties in my name first. We bought 5 properties in my name, and then from there I couldn't buy any more properties, and I started the business, and then we started buying properties in my wife's name. That's how we got to 6 properties. And the reality is, we were buying properties. Me and my wife were both buying properties at the same time at one point. And if I reflect back and look at it, it's actually you can actually buy properties quicker if you're buying them. Like, my wife was signing a contract one month and I was signing a contract to the next month, and we could buy properties a lot quicker. And at the time we were buying, it was a hot market. So that was very beneficial for us buying in our own names. But yeah, collectively we own 11 properties. So basically what I wanted to talk about today was, anyway, let's, move on from that. That's not what I want to talk about. But what I wanted to talk about was starting a property portfolio on a low income. And when we started our property portfolio, we own 11 properties today again, but we made all the mistakes, okay? So our first 2 properties that we bought, which were in my name, we hit a roadblock and we hit the servicing cap very quickly. And what that basically meant was we needed to produce more income to service more debt, to buy more properties. And it seemed like it was all like the property investment journey was coming to a halt. The reason that was happening was because we were buying houses we thought were nice to live in. We thought they were nice homes and they looked great, and it just made sense. And we thought, these homes would be great for a family. Anyone would love these homes, and they're just fantastic. We weren't thinking about investing through an investment framework. And when I speak about investment frameworks, and I'm speaking specifically about the ones I use, it's a 3-step framework. It's a 3-part framework, and the framework is, is this property cash flowing? Is this property got good capital growth potential? And is it got a good cash on cash return? And at no point do we think now, is this property a nice home to live in? Because the reality is, as an investor, that is completely irrelevant. And you're probably thinking, of course it's not irrelevant. No, it's completely irrelevant. If you tick the 3 boxes that are important: cash flow, capital growth, and cash on cash return, that, as an investor, that is what is important. And when I say cash flow, obviously, if you dive deeper into that you would have to get into, is this property likely to get rented out at the desired price, and the price that you determine the marketplace to be in terms of rentals all goes into that whole cash flow equation checkbox, which is one of the pillars of the investment framework that I use. So as a person on a low income, what allowed us, me and my wife, when we were making $60K a year, to grow a relatively large property portfolio, earning a normal income, was we seeked out properties that were positive cash flow. We seeked out properties that had high cash flow. So every time we bought a property, it helped us to get to the next property in terms of servicing the debt, in terms of how the banks looked at us and said, okay, these guys have got a lot of debt, but they've also got a lot of income that they've produced through buying properties that have high rent. So as I said, each time we buy a property, it has to have high cash flow, at least enough to cover all the expenses. So that meaning that it's covering the mortgage repayments and all the other expenses that come with running the property, holding the property, and that those expenses and the rent covering all those expenses would mean that the property is positively cash flow. So if I'm to sum it up in one word, I'm looking for properties that are positive cash flow. And that's what it means. So not only do we look for that, and that's not been the only reason that we've been able to grow a large portfolio. The other reason we've been able to grow a large property portfolio is because we look for properties that have high capital growth potential. And this is a misconception that a lot of people have. They think, oh, I have to, if I want to get good capital growth potential, I have to forget about cash flow. I can't buy a property that has good cash flow and I just have to suffer. And let me just go back to the start of my property portfolio again. We kind of had that mindset as well. And we were buying homes that were nice to live in because we're like, if the homes are nice to live in, then they're gonna get capital growth. Wrong. Emotional decision, very stupid way of thinking about it. If you're trying to invest professionally or grow a large property portfolio or build wealth or anything like that, just forget about what people say at the barbecue about investing, because if you ask them how many investment properties they have, they probably don't have any and they don't know what they're talking about. So if you wanna learn how to invest, find someone that has done what you're trying to do, and try and ask them how they did it and what they think the best way is, because there is a far higher likelihood chance that they will steer you in the right direction than just some random person, a friend, a family member at a barbecue. Sorry, doesn't need to be a random person that is telling you what their opinion is that has no bearing on the reality of achieving the goal. Getting to the second point. So if you're on a low income, buy positively cash flow properties. That will help you grow a larger portfolio, 1. And 2, buy properties that have good capital growth potential. And good capital growth potential, as we just mentioned, doesn't mean that it doesn't cash flow. You can get both, as I always have. My property portfolio, ever since I invested in investment grade properties, has cash flowed positive the entire time, hasn't costed me a cent to own the properties, and they've all seen substantial capital growth. And it's crazy really, because a person that would invest in a negatively cash flowed property would actually be very happy if they got maybe half the capital growth that we have seen in our property portfolio. And what do I mean by that? I mean, as I said, we've invested in cash flow positive properties and the properties have doubled. Yes, like from the purchase price that we bought them to now have doubled in price in the space of 3 to 3.5 years. That means a property, for example, that we bought for $200,000 is now worth $400,000 3 to 3.5 years later. So what is this myth about like cash flow or capital growth? You can get both if you know what you're doing, if you know what to look for. That's the sort of properties I look for every day of the week, and that's the sort of properties we buy to help us get to financial freedom and live the life of our dreams. So and there's so much property advocates out there saying, buy this property, it's negative cash flow, and they're targeting people that are doctors, they're targeting people that are on high incomes, and it's just really not realistic. You cannot be buying those sort of properties if you're on a low or normal income, because the reality is you probably can't afford to pay the $100, $200, $300, $400 each week to hold these negatively cash flowing properties that maybe someone on a high income could. And the reality is, if you want to build a large property portfolio, whether you're on a high or a low income, doing it like that is not sustainable. And as I said, even if you do buy these properties, the reality is, if you know what you're looking for, if you know how to find them, if you've done it before, you can find properties that you don't need to cop the $300 negative cash flow a week to get that capital growth. That is not the same, if not better, than what you would get from these negative cash flow properties. So hopefully that helped to give you guys some insight in investing, and some of the principles that you should use when investing, and busted a few myths for you guys, because the reality is, it doesn't matter what income you're on, you can always build a large property portfolio, as me and my wife have. You just have to have the right framework, the right principles, and the right mindset to do it. So if this video helped you as an investor, as a beginner investor, as an advanced investor, please just give me a like and a subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And if you have any ideas for videos you'd like me to put out there, just comment and I'd be more than happy to do a video on that. Cheers guys, bye.